Hello, my name is Curtis today, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm here to read this book, The Daily Reflections, for February 22nd, 2026. It's called Guidance. This means a belief in a creator who is all power, justice, and love, a God who intends for me a purpose, a meaning, and a destiny to grow, however haltingly, toward his own likeness and image. That's from As Bill Sees It, page 51. As I began to understand my own powerlessness and my dependence on God as I understand him, I began to see that there is a life which, if I could have it, I would have chosen for myself from the beginning. It is through this continuing work of the steps and the life in the fellowship that I've learned to see that there is truly a better way into which I am being guided. As I come to know more about God, I am able to trust His ways and His plans for the development of His character in me. Quickly or not so quickly, I grow toward His image and likeness. Period. The end of the reading. So as usual, I didn't do my homework. I never write a script. I do these when I feel like it. I'm not a licensed therapist. Curtis isn't even my real name. So let's start with those few things. This thing about guidance in today's reading, I'd like to try and dig into this here because I think it resonates with me now, nearly 20 years sober. And like my beginning in this program, let's say that's when I say my beginning into this program, I don't know where that beginning actually is. My sincere beginning in this program began when I quit drinking because I was a very broken, desperate man at that point. Not even a man, really, by age, but not by attitude, behavior, and all that, the important stuff. Why did I bring that up? Oh, that's okay. Like I said, no script, and this thing that resonates with me today. I began to see that there was a life which, if I could have it, I would have chosen for myself from the beginning. That statement there from the writer of today's text in the title Guidance for February 22nd, 2026 Daily Reflection. Now, this thing, somewhere in the beginning of my program, let me explain that a little bit. I started drinking roughly when I was 16. It wasn't an everyday occurrence. I was underage. Alcohol was illegal in that state that I lived in. So it was hard to get, but not impossible. So, we found a way to get booze and we got drunk. Like I say, not every day. But it got to be a regular occurrence, let's say. I don't know how regular. It may not even be important right here. But that would have been the beginning of my alcoholism, maybe, or the beginning of the being caught in the grips of some previously dormant disease, which a lot of people call alcoholism. Now they dreamt up some other name, alcohol deficiency use or something. I don't know what it is. If it means that you're losing control over your addiction, that fits it, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, so let's see. Probably because it was illegal, so it was difficult to get the drug, which is alcohol. So it was all kept quiet as much as possible. But now, years down the road, once I did become of age, now there's two things here. At this point in the state I lived in, I turned 18, which was not legal age to buy and consume alcohol, I think. So it was still not easy to get, which probably kept the frequency of the usage down to a minimum, and also quiet. Not bragging to everybody that we've got some illegal drug with us, which is alcohol. I may not be remembering all this correctly, and that isn't the point either. Not the remembering falsely, but this. I'm just trying to say, 18 years old, not legal to drink yet, but legal to join the military, which I had already signed up for before turning 18, because that is legal. And then when I did turn 18, shortly after that date, I joined the military, or actively swore in to. Okay, and so when I did turn 21, at least for my state, and I do believe, here's the thing, at that time in the military, at least the branch I was in, the United States Navy, you could drink legally if you were 18 years old and you were like on a military installation that served alcohol. And I think with no further restrictions except for abiding by whichever hours the enlisted club was open, because that was basically anyway, too many details. But still only 18, not legal to drink alcohol, at least in most states, I believe, actually in all states at that time, in the United States. And being in the Navy, I was traveling all around the world a lot, which sounds funny because there's only so many lakes and oceans and stuff that has again, not important. What I'm trying to get at is that at 16 years old, I drank infrequently, but every time, and this is give or take, every time I drank to get passed out or blacked out or throwing up. Whether that was on purpose or not, that was usually the end result. Another way of putting that, it was very uncontrolled drinking. And also not aware or not caring that there might be some problem with the quantities I was trying to consume as frequently as possible as time went on. So I'm going to call that's the beginning of the alcoholism. But thanks to like public safety laws and things like that in the United States at that time, I wasn't able to purchase it legally. Once I was in the military, then I could always go to the E-Club to drink. So it got easier. Also, I think that meant I could buy beer at the, what do we call it? The commissary or the PX in the Army, I think it's what the store on the base, on the post, the base, whatever you want to call it. Because I do, anyway, all these details. Once I could get the stuff legally, then it's like I was really only constrained by money, because as I figured out, the threat of poor performance the next day wasn't an issue. I didn't even think about that. And then when I did understand that I would be hung over the next day, that didn't prevent me from drinking to that point again. Okay, so I guess I'm trying to paint a picture here of another thing that came out of today's reading, which wouldn't that be nice to stick to something of a plan. It's called guidance. And here, this first line, as I began to understand my own powerlessness over alcohol. That's like step one. What does step one say? And step two? We'll get that here. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable, period. That's the first step. The second step, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, period. The end of the second step. And one way I've described some of my insanity, demonstrating that I needed to return to sanity, was kind of what I was painting this picture of, that every time I drank, it went right off the end of the scale, or off the page, completely uncontrolled, unchecked drinking. And sometimes, I mentioned this a while back on one of these readings, about the beginning of prayer, I think, and having some kind of faith. That in the early days of the drinking, it would cause me to become so physically ill that I would reach out towards God, as I had no idea what or who that entity was. And I don't think I was very sincere. I would ask for the pain to stop, or just please let me live through this and I'll never drink again. That kind of, I think there's some cliche describing that type of prayer. Foxhole praying, maybe. Death row praying. I snicker and laugh, because it's like, for the person praying, they wish that this prayer could be effective. And I don't think wishes are the things that make a prayer successful. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so in the early days of the drinking, and then becoming of legal age to purchase that drug, alcohol, it became easy. The only restraint was money, basically. Like I said, I didn't care about anything else, just as long as I can afford to buy this stuff. And then it got, well, here, that's for another time. I was going to mention the lengths I was ready to go to get the drug, even if I didn't have money. So that's for another time. I'm trying to get at today's reading, guidance, and then being turned on to this possibility of a different way to live, or a new lifestyle, or what did it say in today's reading where I started here? It said this kind of resonated for me. I began to see that there was a life which, if I could have it, I would have chosen for myself from the beginning. And that came about. It is through the continuing work of the steps and the life and the fellowship that I've learned to see that there truly is a better way into which I am being guided. So, in the beginning days of the military service, I was able to buy the stuff legally, so then there wasn't really any constraint on the drinking, because I would always have it. And when I drank it, I might have had a little bit of control, but it just escaped me. Any amount of control I thought I had, it quickly evaporated, and it was becoming a daily thing. And then consequences started appearing that got the higher ups in the chain of command, most notably, like the direct supervisor that I worked with, um, I think a few times, it's like, you better get out of here, because if the chief sees you in this condition, there's going to be a large payment to be made. I don't want to curse. So it's not going to please the chief, and you're going to have a lot of trouble on your hands. So just go back to the barracks, and I'll cover for you or something, whatever. Again, the consequences and all that, I don't care. Just, he said, you're too effed up to be here, get out of here. And then that was kind of it. Except for then the trust level was being degraded, and a whole bunch of all that stuff. And the last reading I did, I think, was on the 20th. It might have been Friday, which would be helpful. Friday the 20th. I was mentioning, let's see, about the trust level, and I got a spaghetti brain. It's not like that firm, nice, tight thought process. The consequences of the drinking were appearing way more frequently, and I needed to change. Okay, and what I'm trying to get at here is this thing that there was a different way to live and a better life, most probably than the way I was living my life, with a nearly constant ingestion of alcohol to the point of unconsciousness, and then having the consequences and not being able to deal with them effectively because of the impairment left over from the other last drinking period, I think. And that, it's like, essentially I was never sober after I started drinking on a regular basis in the military, except for some very long stretches at sea. The thirst, the temptation, and desire was always there, though. So, and I don't want to talk about all that right here, because I'll get just the spaghetti brain. I'll go right off the map again. Here's an interesting thing for you, the viewer, maybe. No matter what month it is, and whatever the topic may be, like today's topic to the reading for this month's day, for today in this month, the reading title is called Guidance. And like I said, I don't have a script. I don't do my homework. I don't have a clue of really what I'm going to talk about. And now I'm trying to inform you that this might be interesting, that I've got it figured that since this is the second month, this book, the Daily Reflections book, is talking about the second step, which I read to be, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So all throughout the second month, I think this book is talking about that second step, coming to believe that there's a power greater than yourself that can restore you to sanity. Maybe another way of putting that comes right out of this statement in today's reading. I began to see that there was a life which, if I could have it, I would have chosen for myself from the beginning, and I found that out because of the steps in the fellowship in AA and the direction I was being guided. So, where are we in my little mini drinking history? Once there were more serious consequences coming more frequently in the military because of my drinking. Even though I didn't see that there was a possibility of a better life, I had an abundance of people telling me that there was. I had an abundance of people telling me, you're drinking too much, it's wrecking your life, And of course, it's wrecking your service record and your chances for promotion and great personal harm also, death, because, well, I was an aircraft mechanic and working on the flight deck and things like that, and on the flight line, whatever. Every job, man. Every job in the military is dangerous at some point. That's another thing I want to say is that, let's see, this thing is that even though I was an aircraft mechanic and more specifically a structural repair mechanic, that this has been bouncing back and forth between AMS, AME, and AM. I forget. I'm glad I forgot. There used to be 3 ratings for aircraft mechanic between AD. I don't remember anymore. Thank God. Anyways, it doesn't matter because I was an aircraft mechanic. Now that is secondary to being a sailor, which came first. So, like in boot camp, the first thing they teach everybody is all the safety and teamwork kind of things and discipline. Because who knows what anybody knows, especially at that young of an age, coming from the outside world, being civilian, and then joining a whole different way of life, the military. They make you into a sailor first, and then whatever specialty part of seamanship you are. And likewise, like, I can't speak with any kind of authority on this. Not that I'm speaking about the Navy with any kind of authority. It's just what I remember. I think at this point, 40 years on, is that like the first thing you are in the Army is a soldier, which I believe in the Marine Corps, the first thing you're a soldier. Then you're a doctor, lawyer, mechanic, plumber, whatever it is, or cook or whatever, driver. I don't know what the different ratings are. And why did I bring all that up? Oh, because any job in the military, it's like the first thing you are is a sailor, an airman, a soldier, or a Marine, I think is what it used to be. And now we got the Space Force, and I don't have any idea what's up with that. What I'm saying is that the magnitude of a mistake is usually larger than in the civilian sector, usually, not always. And at some point, the job you've been tasked with, now individually, say you're peeling potatoes. I've done jobs like that first before becoming the actual mechanic that was whatever on the plane, or if you're working on a tank or whatever. They need to like temporarily assign you to duty, to something else. And peeling potatoes, say, washing dishes, whatever it may be, cleaning the barracks, to see if you can put up with it, I guess. And it's a good thing, too. Because still they're weeding people out, kind of, at that early stage. And then you finally get assigned to your job. My point in saying this is, number one, is that every job in the military, for sure, is dangerous and even deadly. The potential for death there is a lot greater than if you're working in a normal civilian job, I'm going to say. Not to discount the amount of lunatics running around the planet that will cause you a lot of great difficulty, even if you're a civilian, even if you're not working, whatever it may be. There's just some people with a lot of issues that need to be dealt with other than anyways. What's the point? I'm trying to talk about guidance here, and in particular, the awareness of a different way to live. And I've been trying to paint this picture or tell this story and help you to maybe understand where I was coming from at this time, a long time ago in my life, that even though I had a lot of people telling me, that's stupid, you should not be drinking, it's wrecking your life, get some help. And really, that's about all they could do until they had a higher level of threat, though, which they didn't employ, I guess might be the word, is some drunken infraction, and then they took me, or they took the airplanes away from me, basically. It's like, you don't get to do this anymore because you need help in alcoholism recovery stuff immediately, and we're going to enforce it in the way that we can. We're going to take you away from your normally assigned duties of working as an aircraft mechanic, and sort of in a way of returning you back to just being a sailor, which you are at the base level, I guess, all the time. The most important part of your gig is that you're a sailor, for various reasons, traditional stuff, whatever. It doesn't matter, man. And send you through some kind of alcohol rehab thing. That I think the first level of that was CAC is the acronym, I think. CAAC, Career and Assessment, or Career Alcohol and Counseling. Career Assessment and Counseling, I think is what it was. CAC. Career Assessment and Counseling, maybe. That sounds good enough to me. And I think that was like a week long. It might have been longer. It might have been 3 weeks. I'm glad I don't remember the details of that either. But like I was saying, I had people telling me, this is wrecking your life. Your alcohol use is destroying you. You don't seem to know, but we can see it happening. This is what we can do to try and arrest that behavior. It's take you out of the job of take you out of the job we trained you for, and try and make you sober, get you sober, get something good happening in your brain to stop this self-destructive behavior. I mean, when you think about it, in getting into the military at that point, you sign a lot of documents and things. And I don't have a sharp recall on a lot of stuff. But what it equated to, and how I can maybe relate it to you, is that for a length of time, I signed up, and basically for a length of time, I let the government do whatever they wanted with, well, here, let's just start here. I rented my body out to the government for them to do whatever they wanted to it, with some restrictions, in effect. Essentially, what I had done is said, here, I'm going to give you all this time, whatever amount it was, at the beginning, to do with me what you will, with some exceptions. So that's where I became this thing like called GI, or general issue, or a sailor. And when so I'm trying to say I became government equipment rather than a human. But I mean, this is kind of an extreme view of this thing. But I was yet another piece of equipment that the government had spent a great deal of money investing in, so it would be of use to them. And I had all that, and then I started drinking too much, something that could be controlled and was not expected of me. That was not in my job description, to stay drunk. So, you know, there's all kinds of problems with that. But anyways, they weren't getting their money's worth, let's put it that way. And it wasn't within my rights to treat my body that way anymore, because in another kind of way, it wasn't really my body anymore because of all the shit documents I had signed. So what's the point? They informed me of my failings in my contractual agreement, I guess. Okay, so they sent me to this counseling and assistance center or whatever I called it, something like that. It's like this first level where they determined, like I was saying, my immediate supervisor was usually the first person. They'd say, hey, you got a problem, get out of here before we all get in a bunch of trouble. And they hoped, prayed that would be the end of it. And well, I just started using that all the time and doing exactly what I felt like doing, which was getting drunk as soon as possible again. That was the insane part. I don't know if I finished that. Because the pain and anguish of the actual drunkenness when you're maybe in some physical distress. And I said the foxhole prayer thing. Oh, please get me out of this. I'll do anything. I'll quit drinking. Just get me out of this situation right now and I'll quit drinking. The insanity was as soon as I was able to drink again, I would. So that prayer never mattered to me until very recently, relatively speaking. 10 years ago or so, or whatever it was. I've been sober like almost 20. So anyhow, had the chain of command and people in authority and people that liked me and people that loved me like family saw what I was doing. The government saw me wrecking their equipment, and my humans in my life that weren't in the military that liked me saw the person they fell in love with or the person that they loved turning into something else and getting closer to death rapidly because of the drinking, and something again that could be preventable, or that is preventable and could be treated differently and whatever. And this is why this reading today, that a life that which if I could have it was in a better direction, or whatever this guy said. I began to see that there is a life which, if I could have it, I would have chosen for myself from the beginning. I had that before I started drinking. I didn't know I had it, though. That's the thing about age and wisdom, too, right? You start to understand different things, and a lot of times it's too late to get the full benefit out of your revelations that come with wisdom and age. To get the full benefit, you can still benefit a whole lot, but the less wisdom you have, let's put it that way, which does tend to come with age. So the younger you are, this line again, this life that if I could have it was better for me. I'll put it that way in my words. I couldn't see that. I thought I was king alcohol or whatever, and it wasn't affecting me, and I'm going to live forever, and that kind of typical thought. Let me say this here now, that because I didn't finish this thought before, that regardless of what month it is, it's month 2, we're talking about alcoholism. That would be the overarching thing. Like, even though I was an aircraft mechanic in the military, in the Navy, first I was a sailor. Just like this book now. Like, it's the second month. They're trying desperately through me to talk about the second step. That's why I say desperately, because I'm not doing such a good job about talking about step 2 specifically so much, and why I brought this up again right now, and maybe 10 minutes ago probably by now, that what I'm trying to do here, and regardless of, even though it's the second month, I'm always talking about, well, I'm usually always talking about how I found this alleged better life, say, through Alcoholics Anonymous, after discovering I am an alcoholic, and Alcoholics Anonymous has helped a lot of people recover from alcoholism. What is recovery? Are you recovered? Are you ever not an alcoholic? I stopped trying to figure those ones out, because what I have figured out is that this level of insanity involved in my drinking, which I haven't painted the full picture yet. I just knew the stuff was poison to me, in that every time I drank it, I could not physically stop drinking, which I feel needs a little more clarification. When I have the ability to stop drinking, like right now, I feel fairly confident I can take a sip of this and set it down and probably just not even drink it again today. With alcohol, when I was drinking, before I became a recovering alcoholic, maybe I can put it that way, I never knew if I would be able to do such a thing as take a sip, set it down, and just let it be and not bother with it again. That day, that week, that month, that year, whatever, or ever again in my lifespan. And it was repeated to me over and over by my own experimental use of alcohol and trying to recover, that I was an alcoholic in whatever sense you want to use to describe that. So I was just better off not drinking the stuff at all. Complete abstinence. Because just a little, anyways, what am I getting at? The consequences and the awareness now coming along that there was a different way to live. And it could be possible. That's this guidance thing, an overarching way or direction to head in your life, rather than the one I was choosing when I was drinking. Because like I said, I don't think I was really ever sober except for some very long stretches at sea with complete abstinence from alcohol, that I ever had a clear enough mind. There was always some leftover lingering impairment from the alcohol. And I would like to say this, I like tangents, but what I'm trying to say also is that I'm always talking about recovery from alcoholism, and whether it's about the second step, first step, eighth step, whatever, that I'm trying to be helpful in an unscripted way. Because I'm not a licensed therapist or anything. Even if, if there was a license to be had and a bunch of requirements that you would need to meet to call yourself an alcoholic, I'm really confident you couldn't come up with a test in that manner that I couldn't pass to prove to you that I'm an alcoholic. So this is meant to enforce the idea that for whatever reason, I can't be trusted around alcohol. Who knows what's going to happen? So just, brand me an alcoholic of whatever variety, and that's probably good enough. At least it's good enough to understand that Alcoholics Anonymous, their program, has been working for lots of people for a long time, and we can fight about statistics that if you've got 100 people that are all classified in some way as alcoholic or alcoholics, and they all go into Alcoholics Anonymous, 50% or 50 out of 100 people are going to remain sober and 50 aren't. I don't know what the exact stats are, and we can argue about that, and I'm done arguing about that. For myself, I've determined I don't know what's going to happen if I return to drinking. It's so grim, I don't want to have to experience it again. It's really, I have a great deal of control in that decision, whether or not, like I was saying, this doesn't have so much grip over me once I consume it. If that was full of alcohol, again, I don't know what would happen after I started drinking it. very likely I wouldn't be able to put it down when it would be best for me to put it back down and not drink anymore, for sure. And I don't know how much I would drink and what would happen after that. Typically, in the drinking days, okay, well, I couldn't stop drinking. Sure you would. You'd run out of booze. You'd pass out, or these things. You'd be arrested for your behavior, and that would put an end to your drinking at that time for a brief while. Well, there's some wiggle room there, because if I ran out of alcohol and the liquor store was open, well, do the math. It's like, I'm going to get to the liquor store to get more booze. Let's leave it at that. Not the best choice at times. Anyhow, that was another one of these things. Didn't know what was going to happen. Got maybe about 9 minutes here to try and wrap this up about guidance. I'm trying to talk about guidance and that one line that there's, let me read that again. Maybe I'll read the whole statement, this whole thing again today. The daily reflection for today, February 22nd, is called guidance. This means a belief in a creator who is all power, justice, and love, a God who intends for me a purpose, a meaning, and a destiny to grow, however haltingly, toward his own likeness and image. That's from As Bill Sees at page 51. As I began to understand my own powerlessness and my dependence on God as I understand him, I began to see that there was a life which, if I could have it, I would have chosen for myself from the beginning. It is through the continuing work of the steps and the life in the fellowship that I've learned to see that there is truly a better way into which I am being guided. As I come to know more about God, I am able to trust his ways and his plans for the development of his character in me. Quickly or not so quickly, I grow toward his own image and likeness, period, the end of the reading. Now, step 2. Let's go back to step 1 first. We admitted, and paraphrasing, step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I knew that. I had an inkling of a thought that was going to happen. The little bit of energy it took to say those 2 statements robbed me of the energy to use to get to the point. Guidance. And always talking about recovery from alcoholism here on this channel, mostly. Effective for lots of people, can argue about the stats. Doesn't matter to me anymore. I know what I am as an alcoholic. Powerless over alcohol. That's where I was trying to go. And then the life being unmanageable because of the powerlessness. And one way, a different or other way, still effective way of looking at steps 1 and 2 would be that if you're powerless, what are you lacking? You're lacking power. Powerless. You need power. What does step 2 say? A belief that there's a power that can restore you to sanity. And I also like to the substitution about today's reading. It says God a number of times. Substitute the group of fellow recovering alcoholics, the fellowship, as or in place of that word God. Even if you like, change the word God to good, orderly direction in which you can now be heading towards a better life, not involving alcohol, would be the guidance maybe that you start to see. 5 minutes. So all that stuff I was saying earlier today was trying to illustrate, I guess, my powerless over a substance and my ignorance that there was something better. That's why I did bring up the the level 1 CAC alcohol recovery training stuff that the military imposed upon me out of the goodness of their hearts, actually. And I just brushed it off. I completed the stuff and did whatever they said, and then got back to working on planes. And then the insanity part of the alcoholism took over again at some point later, and had another alcohol-related thing, and had a larger, more intrusive, intervening treatment modality imposed upon me by the military. Put it that way. Completed all those steps, and then got back to the regular normal job of being a mechanic rather than just a sailor, and promptly slapped everybody in the face with it again, becoming drunk and causing a problem to where it got to be anyways, not the point. I became familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous way back then, rapidly. Like when I was 15, never a drop of alcohol. 16, had some alcohol. It only took about 3. It took about 2 years of drinking from being 16 years old until I was intimately familiar with at least why there was an Alcoholics Anonymous. And then that's where my interest departed from that. And then, I was, anyway, I could just talk and talk and talk in circles, it might appear. But usually I'm trying to help somebody else that might be struggling with alcoholism and struggling with one possible way of arresting that behavior and maybe feeling better and improving your circumstances in life through using the Alcoholics Anonymous program. Because I'm trying to impart upon you one possible way you can go through Alcoholics Anonymous and get some kind of results that might be helpful in your life. And so the step 2 thing, all the stuff about God, just replace the group in there, or instead of God, use your sponsor. Maybe. These are just suggestions. Even the 12 steps themselves, it's written in the big book, I believe. In this book, the Alcoholics Anonymous book, there's lots of stuff written in there. That these are but suggested steps. That's no pressure, man. There's no pressure in Alcoholics Anonymous. Your sponsor might seem to be putting pressure on you about certain things, but I guarantee, right next to guarantee you, even if it's a really poor job of it, they're trying to help you. So thank you for using your time here today. And I hope it's an investment of your time, not just spending time. But sometimes we just end up spending time doing things. What happens when you keep spending money? You run out of money. If you just keep spending time and not investing time, you're going to run out of time and not have anything. If you invest in things, you can get some quality out of it and keep